And within the European Seed Association, there's quite a lot of items to do. And basically, if you see what discussions are going on within in Europe, then you have to make sure that those discussions are, let's say, well discussed within the European Seed Association. The most important thing, I think, for the European Seed Association is that we quickly have clear opinions on what we like to achieve as a total association. Well, this is I think very important. It's not important that we say we want to have a position on one or two items if that is not politically relevant at this time. And there are many discussions, political discussions going on in Europe. So what is, in my perception, very important is clearly that we decide where do we have to focus on, and how can we take our position and implement our position. Now, the most important discussion basically that is going on at this moment, I would say, is probably the so-called better regulation discussion. This is all about new market legislation for how to get the seeds let's say marketed within in Europe. We have all kinds of legislation from basically built from the 60s and the 70s, so they are quite a number of years old. It is understandable that Europe is saying we like to change this in one or the other way. All right. We have had over the last years enormous discussions within the European Commission, but also within the ESA to say, if we have to make new rules, what would we like to have? Now, we are now in a position that Europe is, let's say, designing the new rules. Now, the most important thing is not to debate what we clearly like to achieve, but to make sure that we can lobby in such a way that the politicians are taking over our position. So instead of the internal discussion and say, what do we like to achieve, now we have to really go out and make sure that everybody in the outside world understands what we like to achieve. And I think in the coming few years this is an important part, because decisions on those marketing rules and regulations or directives or whatever you call them will be likely somewhere in European Parliament in 2014, but that means that 2013 everything needs to be prepared. Let me first say ASAPC is a seed potato company. We are breeding our potatoes, potato varieties, and we try to get them sold in one or the other way around the world. We have been working with Cantabruna already for years. They are an important player on the Finnish market, though the Finnish market is not a very huge market, but they were dominant on that market. It is an area where you can produce high quality seed potatoes. You really go to the northern part of Finland. There's no high temperatures and not a lot of disease pressure, a lot of daylight during the summer. Don't get that too often in the winter time, I would say. So as they were already working a lot with our varieties and they want to change their company, we came to a deal then that we are taking over the seed potato activities of that company. That company started as a seed potato company and went much more in potato processing and those type of things, so the industry side, and at the end they said, okay, it's better that we stop with the seed potato activities and that ASAPC is taking over the seed potato activities. So it will impact our business slightly because it's only a small part compared to our the total tonnages that we are doing. But it fits in our picture the way we want to have a stronger position in the total northern part of Europe. And we've established a business in Sweden a number of years ago, basically first of all together with Cantabruna, and then we've taken over all the shares. Now we have this one. Cantabruna is together with us also exporting quite a lot of material to Russia. So we are now building up some business further in Russia with them. So you can see that Sweden, Finland and Russia, where you talk about northern Russia, is basically one area for us, and we want to be stronger in that northern European market. Yeah, seed potatoes is very special compared to most of the other seeds, and I've been working in all kind of agricultural seeds before I joined ESA now 11, 12 years ago. And there's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences. The big difference, of course, is that potatoes is big size. I mean, you talk about truckloads. It's difficult to store, high cost for transport, compared to seeds, which is much smaller, which you can store much easier, you can transport more easier to all kinds of other places. Basically, companies are either in seed potatoes, and they are not really active in other seeds, or they are active in all kinds of seeds, but they are not in seed potatoes. There are a few exceptions, but there's quite a split between them as far as the seed trade is concerned. This is also one of the reasons that in the congress that's going on over here at this moment, you don't see real seed potato guys. They have their own platforms where they meet. But as far as legislation, breeding techniques, etc. is concerned, there's a lot of similarity. And I think it's important to really create that bridge between what's going on in the total seed world and let's say maybe in the circle of the potato world, so to say. So for me, this is important. What you do see is that a lot of potato companies stick within their own thinking, whereas I've learned that there's so many know-how, technologies, whatever, that you can learn from seed companies. So we try to be in good relation to the seed companies. So that's a part of it. You see the same in North America. There are no real seed potato companies active in North America. The breeding so far basically always have been done by universities. I think all the varieties, there's not a lot of breeding going on in America, certainly not compared to Europe. Universities are breeding, and they have their own marketing system. They bring the varieties on the market, mostly not exclusive, or they give it to a group of people, go on with relatively low royalties, and like to spread the varieties as quick as possible over the market, which is okay if you have a very superb product, but there's nobody who's really going to market that material. We as a private company, we started our business in Canada, for Canada and the United States, and also Mexico in the 90s. We are growing and growing in the United States. I dare to say that probably we are the biggest supplier of proprietary material in the United States, though we are a relatively small company. But nobody else is really breeding. And we are transferring genetics from Europe to America. There's a small breeding program going on, but basically we try to get material which is bred for, let's say, continental climates to America. Yeah, the last one is a specific one. I do see a huge development in all kinds of new technologies. There is, if you really look what technologies are becoming available, either for certain crops or for, let's say, or for more crops, out of all kinds of companies, universities, etc., etc. That's enormous. You really get excited if you see what possibilities there might be, and they are not. Most of those techniques are not yet proven. Most of those techniques are not yet, let's say, fully used or whatever. But if you look at the theories behind it, it must be possible. I'm sure that within a short notice, those will be implemented in the techniques, in normal breeding techniques in the different companies. And then you get to a very interesting point, which is, I think, is a very worrying point for Europe. You see a lot of techniques that are considered, or they might be considered in the United States as non-GMO, and those same techniques are considered in Europe as a GMO. And this is a real split of the world, or you can say it's a real problem of Europe, because you see that the rest of the world is developing themselves, whereas Europe is continuing to be an island in the total world. And I can tell you that we talk with those different suppliers of the technologies, and as soon as it's clear that those technologies are non-GMO in the United States, we want to work with that. And internally we've had severe discussions over the last period. So we do see that new technologies will bring us forward. And when I will now not talk specifically about potatoes, but you see there are huge possibilities. When those new technologies will be considered as non-GMO, then I think we don't have another choice than to shift a part of our research work from Europe to the United States, or at least to outside Europe. Because if Europe is continuing to be that island, whereas the rest of the world is continuing, there are much more potatoes grown outside Europe than inside Europe, though we are from origin and etc. European company, and so far the main breeding activities are in Europe. It's not nice, and there's a lot of additional cost that we have to make, but we have to deal with that. And so, and will GMO then won't ever be accepted in Europe? Yes, it will. I mean, Europe cannot isolate themselves. The clothes we are wearing, I mean, it's made from cotton, and how many cotton in the world is grown out of GMOs? So GMO is, in clothes you have the cotton which is used. You see GMO products are coming in for in all kinds of soybeans and whatever, they're coming into Europe. And if you get a situation when certain technologies are considered as non-GMO in the United States and considered as GMO over here, if someone is at the end is bringing then potatoes, for instance, if I stick to the potatoes, which are bred with new technologies in the United States, and they're bringing those potatoes to Europe, and they don't know if it is a free variety, I mean after a certain period, and they don't know what technology is used to breed that variety, because there's only knowledge of the breeder, then the variety is free to be traded likely in Europe. And so at the end Europe cannot really withhold themselves on for not using GMOs, but it's still a long way, and with a lot of hurdles and a lot of political discussions. And we will see how this will go. But at a certain moment, Europe will have to accept the GMOs. Now, we have plenty of new varieties in the pipeline for Canada. Basically, what we are doing is we are breeding new varieties that are, let's say, our breeding station is the main station is in the Netherlands, and in a relatively early stage, as soon as we think this is good material for more continental climates, we are bringing those in tubes to Canada. And so we have a lot of new material that we start and to test in Canada. It's a cumbersome route, because you get a few tubers, they have to go through quarantine. Once they are gone through quarantine, we have to multiply them. Then we have enough, after a few years, we have enough tubers to make our first trial field. And then we're going to trial those varieties in different areas in Canada, in the United States, etc. And then we will see where we will get. Now, if you see now the varieties we are working with in the yellow flesh market, we have several of our varieties which are very well accepted and used by different of our say clients in the United States and Canada. That means packers, etc. But also industries, French fry industries, start to work with our varieties. The Innovator is a successful variety with the industry in many places in the world. It's not extremely white. It is, let's say, it's in Europe considered as a white, but in America considered as a let's say creamy variety. But this variety is now used by one of the major processors as well. And we are now also active in introducing new material with other processors. So we are starting to introduce with new proprietary material in the industry market, which is the heart, of course, of the American market. If you look at the fresh market, I could mention several of the varieties we have. Let's say for the southern part of the states, we work with early varieties like the Adora, etc. But you see a Mozart as a red variety. I can give you a full list of varieties that we are using. And we think through the big packers in Canada, especially, we are able to introduce many of the new varieties. If you look at, we look at always at the tonnages of our varieties used in Canada and the United States, and we make steps forwards, what you should call double-digit steps forwards every year in the tonnages that are used of our varieties, and basically based on new varieties that we are really introducing. I think that if you say, is our breeding program our limiting factor, is our marketing program a limiting factor, we have more varieties on stock at this moment that are ready to be introduced, then we can really handle through the different clients. And that's because we have really taken all kinds of varieties that are already used in the world and not yet used in Canada. We brought them to Canada. Right. And we are now, we built our own new premises on PEI. Right. So it means a lab, but basically to maintain our own material, and then we are easier, we can probably quicker get new varieties, multiply them and introduce them on the Canadian market. And it's a huge market, and we are still relatively small. So it's within our company. If you, for the total of ASAPC, where would we like to grow in the coming 5 years? We want to grow in Canada and the United States.